Madaka is a virgin loser who avoids girls like they're an STD, but everything changes when he meets a popular girl who is trying to make him her baby daddy and break his no-nutting streak. In the beginning, it was a glorious day in a hospital, as among the ugly-looking babies that were born was a glowing and beautiful baby Mona. As she grew up, Mona rizzed every single one of her peers, both men and women. Even when she played hide-and-seek with her friends, they all gladly asked Mona to catch them so they could touch her sweet sweat. And it made her feel like she was on top of the world, a queen bee that was above everyone, where all of them are bums compared to her. In the present, Mona wakes up to greet her own reflection due to how pretty she is. And when she gets to school, everyone there greets her like she's the best thing since the invention of sliced bread. However, when Mona gets to class, everyone also greets her apart from one man, a new student, the Sigma, who is more Chad than Giga Chad himself, Madaka. He greets her without glazing her like the others, and it frustrates Mona that this moron treats her differently from the others every day. She tries to play cute with Madaka, offering him a tour of the school while putting up a cute face, but Madaka tells this skank to leave him alone, which angers the other boys and frustrates Mona. Just then, she notices that on his phone, Madaka is scrolling through cat pictures, so she tries to riz him by acting like a cat, offering him to look at some cats while he can make her kitty purr. But while the others think she's cute, it pisses off Madaka so much that he refused to show her any cat pics, which is a crime against humanity. He adds salt to the wound by telling Mona not to talk to him unless it's necessary, and it hurts Mona's ego so much, as all her life, she always charmed boys into wanting to be her baby daddies. But today, Mona runs away in frustration due to Madaka's reaction. However, she refuses to give up, so the next day, Mona pretends to put on a poster while showcasing her smoother-than-butter legs.
You naughty, naughty.
But when Madaka walks past her, he stops for a second, gets pissed, and walks away. Mona refuses to stop here, so she pretends to fall and showcases her pink undies. While the other boys want to sniff it, Mona is surprised to see Madaka even more angry than before. It leaves her with no choice, so the next day she pretends to be sick in class, and when the teacher tells her to bring someone with her to the nurse's office, she pretends to fall on Madaka, saying that he will take her there. In the nurse's office, she tempts him while they are alone and asks him not to hate her, but just as Madaka is blushing, he quickly switches to a reaction that tells Mona that her sweet cheeks ain't shit. Mona gets desperate and pulls him away, but they both slip and end up on the bed where Mona is on top of him. When she looks down, she sees that Madaka is glaring as if he wants him to get railed by Truck-kun, and Mona feels down, but still so desperate that she decides to show him her melons.
It should have been me, not him!
While most men would quickly fold in this situation, Madaka, being the anti-simp, clears up his mind to reject her. Mona starts crying out of frustration and falls from the bed, but Madaka manages to catch her, which rizzes her up like how I rizzed your mum to gobble my glizzy last night. She quickly realizes how exposed she is, and Madaka gets flustered before putting his cold reaction back on. He leaves the room, but before going back to class, he tells Mona that she should only get her jugs jiggled by the person she likes. And here she is completely under Madaka's charm. Later, she goes back to class where everyone welcomes her back, but when she sits down next to Madaka, it's as if the situation has flipped, where Madaka keeps staring at her while Mona is unable to look him in the eye. It pisses her off that it makes her seem like she's in love with him, so she smashes her head on the table and promises that she will have his heart. Days later, Mona arrives at school where everyone glazes her like usual, but when she meets Madaka, he avoids her like she's an STD. Just then, two girls walk past Madaka, and one of them, Asahi, blushes when she sees him. Afterward, during gym class, Mona stretches provocatively to get Madaka's attention, but even with her showcasing her sweet cheeks or her milky melons, Madaka refuses to fold. However, she still holds the secret weapon, and after a game of basketball, the whole class is in awe seeing Mona wet and sweaty, but she showcases her trump card, which is her belly button, to Madaka, thinking it would work. Madaka simply walks away to refresh himself by pouring water on his head, and not before long, Mona walks next to him to also refresh herself. She has enough and goes for a drink, but when she looks at Madaka, she realizes that he is staring at her and her luscious lips. It excites her so much that she accidentally gets herself so wet that Madaka can see her pink perfection. They both start panicking, but being the ultimate anti-simp, Madaka takes off his shirt and makes Mona wear it. Having dirty thoughts of her own, she peeks at her belly button, which makes her feel naughty. Madaka leaves her after she calms down, But during all of this, a random girl sees everything. After school, Madaka is walking home when two of his classmates, Yuzuru and Shu, confront him about him being mean to Mona. They talk somewhere else and Madaka reveals that he is actually a monk in training who is an heir to a temple that has no baddies, but only goats and old prunes available. For Madaka, he has never seen a girl as thick and cute as Mona since he saw Megan Fox in a pirated DVD of Transformers. The boys suggest that Madaka be a little nicer to Mona, but Madaka knows that if he does, he will surely fall in love with her. He screams out in frustration and pushes away all of his impure thoughts before composing himself, realizing that this life he's enduring is a test for him to become a true monk. The next day, Mona returns Madaka his shirt back, and when she teases him about how he could still sniff the smell of her sweat on it, Madaka quickly looks away to prevent himself from folding. Seeing this, Mona, a queen bee baddie that every man would love to cream to, promises to herself that she will make Madaka fall for her. The next day, Mona wakes up like usual by greeting herself in the mirror like a narcissistic mug.
Brother,
And when she runs to school, she purposefully runs by swaying her jugs around and showcasing her cheeks to rizz up all the bum-ass NPCs and turning them into her simps.
That's weird.
At school, it's time for art class, and Mona strikes a pose to make Madaka cream.
Yeah, boy.
But while he does think she's cute, he composes himself from her charms, which pisses her off. Mona refuses to give up and tempts Madaka by saying that she's willing to be painted like Rose in Titanic, but Madaka still manages to keep his composure intact. She starts looking for poses and recalling how Madaka folded to her drinking some water. Mona strikes a pose that reveals her neck to him.
yes.
Mona comes so close as Madaka gets extremely flustered, but by channeling the same energy he has for No Nut November, he cleanses himself from degenerate thoughts. Then they start drawing, but while Mona is busy posing, she notices that a fellow classmate, Saomi, keeps looking her way like a stalker to the point that her own model gets pissed at her. Just then, Madaka stares daggers at Mona, and when she asks him which part of her body he's drawing, he answers that he's drawing her neck. It makes her extremely conscious of her neck as Madaka is staring at her, and it makes her squeamish as her lower lips are dripping sweet nectar. But she quickly stops the session and runs away to the bathroom. There, Mona composes herself, and can't believe that she folded to Madaka's glare. Meanwhile, Madaka is getting teased by his homies as his portrait is not finished, but he himself is struggling not to use that picture for his night pump session.
It was perfect, down to the last minute details.
Later, she meets Madaka again in the library as they are reaching for the same book, but when she offers to read it together with her, he opts to read something else. Not wanting to be with her due to her cuteness. Then, she manages to sit beside Madaka and reads the same book as him, while he struggles not to paint his pants white. Just then, she notices Saomi stalking her and wonders why she keeps staring at her. Suddenly, Mona comes to the realization that it might not be her that Saomi is stalking, but it's Madaka all along. She imagines that Madaka actually likes Saomi back and refuses to accept it as she has been the one pulling out the moves to get him to fold. Realizing she needs to do something, Mona reassesses her situation and sees that maybe Madaka likes the bookworm type, so Mona just does that. She sits in front of him, wearing glasses and tea in hand, and she speaks like she's Shakespeare. She manages to get a reaction from Madaka, so she raises the level by touching her leg with her feet, tempting to touch his third leg if he folds to her. While Madaka wants nothing more than to see what Mona's foot can do.
What do you mean by that?
Madaka clears up his mind, tells her that her feet are crusty, and walks away, leaving Monaka dry and frustrated, but she notices how happy Saomi looks after seeing her getting rejected and realizes that she has a love rival. The next day, Mona tails Saomi on her daily routine from watering the plants and cleaning the blackboard, and she realizes that Saomi is a basic bitch that has a good personality that every boy would bust to. In the locker room, Mona gets more frustrated when she sees that Saomi is carrying melons that are not only bigger but juicier than hers. At that moment, some girls praise her jugs, but Saomi shows how modest she is to compliments, and it makes Mona run laps in frustration at how pure Saomi is. The next day, she concludes that Saomi is a nicer girl than her, and that if Madaka prefers a girl like her, then Mona is screwed. Just then, the ultimate simp, Shu, pose up to give Mona a book she asked for, and when she jokingly tells him she loves him, Shu leaves happy, ready to meet God. Mona realizes that what she just said to Shu, she has never said to Madaka, and here she has another plan of attack. Later on the rooftop, Madaka is being chilling when a handkerchief flies to him. He catches it and Mona pops up to get it back from him. She thanks him for being such a Chad and for catching her favorite handkerchief, and tells him what she told Shu. However, when she is about to tell him she loves him, Mona struggles to say it, and it confuses her on why she's folding in place. The wind starts blowing them, and while Mona is still struggling, Madaka is enjoying the view.
Yeah, boy.
She cuts short the conversation before running away, and she gets frustrated knowing that Saomi is getting closer to gobble Madaka's glizzy. The next day, the class elects 2 students for their festival committee through a raffle, and while Saomi manages to be the first, Mona draws and gets herself to be the second. Then they discuss activities they should nominate for the festival, and while Saomi can't wait to see Mona in a cute bunny costume, Mona imagines herself in a stuffy suit. Just then, Mona breaks her pencil, and like a true saint, Saomi quickly offers her some of hers. Suddenly, Saomi freaks out about her phone, stating that Mona absolutely cannot see it, but just like any normal human being, it makes Mona want to see it more. She chases Saomi and screams at her, telling her to stay away from Madaka. They end up on top of each other, and when Mona takes a look at the phone, he sees pictures of her in Saomi's phone. Saomi starts crying, asking Mona not to hate her, and reveals that she has been her biggest fan since the entrance ceremony. Mona realizes that Saomi isn't stalking Madaka, and she calms her down, saying that her creepy scissors desires don't bother her.
What?
However, Mona realizes she spouted out Madaka's name during the chase and tries to cover it up, but it's too late for her as Saomi now knows that she has a thing for Madaka and actually encourages Mona to go get her shit clapped by Madaka's ding-a-ling. Days later, the class starts their preparation for the festival, and ever since what happened between them, Mona and Saomi start talking a lot with each other. Whenever Mona looks at Madaka, Saomi encourages her to riz him up.
That's why he's the GOAT! The GOAT!
And it frustrates Mona that Saomi misunderstands her feelings for Madaka, as what Mona wants is for Madaka to love her and lick her crusty-looking feet. Later, while checking the costumes for the festival, Saomi informs Mona of the school's urban legend called the Bridge of Love. When Mona asks what it is, Saomi shows her out the window a bridge, and Saomi explains that the legend said that if 2 people hold hands on the bridge during the festival, they will fall in love with each other forever. She adds that multiple couples have been formed and even already have kids from it. Just then, Saomi gets called outside, leaving Mona alone, and she gets frustrated that her reputation as Queen Bee is getting destroyed as she fails to get Madaka to want to clap her. She looks at the costumes on the table and starts trying them out with the plan of folding Madaka like a lawn chair, but she comes up empty. So Mona takes inspiration from Mei-san and wears a bunny girl outfit to riz Madaka, but before she gets to take it off, Madaka walks in. They both are in shock, and while Mona tries to explain herself, she can hear Saomi heading back to the room. She imagines that Saomi will get deeper into the misunderstanding of her feelings for Madaka, thinking that Mona wore the costume to cream Madaka dry, but Mona refuses to let that happen and pulls Madaka to hide. When Saomi returns, she sees the bunny ears on the floor while Mona and Madaka are hiding in the closet. With the space tight between them, their bodies touch and Madaka can feel Mona's squishy melons.
It should have been me, not him!
He starts breathing heavily, imagining some old granny getting clapped to prevent his mind from wandering.
What?
And Mona struggles herself as she can feel Madaka's breath. Before they both fold, Saomi gets called out again, right before Madaka paints his pants white. While relieved, Mona realizes that what she did might finally fold Madaka, but when she looks back, she realizes she has crossed the line. Mona looks at her own reflection and tells herself that she doesn't